Hey everyone, this is Jack from the Cardboard Herald. We recently posted my list of the top 10 games from 2023, which was an absolute banger of a year, but we're on the precipice of what looks to be yet another year of great games. And you know me, I'm always excited to check out new stuff. I love innovation, I love iteration, I love seeing what sorts of ideas that publishers and designers and illustrators and all those people who make great games are coming up with. And so instead of listing them all, which is too many to count, we are just going to focus in on the top 10 games that come to mind for me for things that I'm burning to get my hands on for one reason or another in 2024. So let's go ahead and get started. Number 10, if you follow this channel at all, you know that I'm a huge fan of the Undaunted series. I love just about everything that these two designers have put out, but specifically Undaunted is one of those lines that is like upper echelon of gaming for me, and I am so eager to check out what they do with Undaunted 2200 Callisto, which is the first non-historical setting for the Undaunted series. I mean, they've done so many interesting, innovative things within the tethers of historical gaming, so it's really exciting to see what sorts of buck wild things they can come up with using this fantastic system for something that doesn't have to depict any sort of reality. I love the historical stuff, but this opens up a brilliant sandbox for them to play in, and it's a fantastic system to interpret in different ways. Number 9 is a game that I've already reviewed on this channel. I don't do a lot of pre-release Kickstarter stuff, but occasionally a project comes my way where I am really eager to check it out, and this was one of them. This is The Old King's Crown, coming from Eerie Idol Studios. It's the debut by the studio, and there's a lot of DNA in here that makes it worth checking out. One, there's been some development from the Leader Games crew, a lot of feedback. They got a special shout out in the rulebook. 2, it's got amazing illustrations. And 3, it's a really interesting flip on this sort of lane battling system. It's got a little bit of deck building. It's got plenty of action selection. It's got a little bit of bluffing. It's got all sorts of hijinks going on. It's a game that I feel like the more that you play, the more depth you're going to discover. And I'm really looking forward to the final polished edition so I can play it, but also to see more people get their hands on it. Number 8 is Stonespine Architects from Thunderworks Games. This is from the same designer as the amazing Cartographers, my favorite flip and roll or write game in existence, and this looks to have some of that scrumptious DNA that Cartographers has, and bringing in some other interesting tile laying doodads into it. I really like that there's some pathing. I like the theme of building out a dungeon. I think there's a lot of really interesting things with this, and I actually got to check out an early version of it at PAX Unplugged, and from what I could see, not actually playing it, but just kind of playing around with the components that were there, there's a lot to look forward to. I love light, accessible games that are played in a shorter playtime, and I think this kind of straddles that lightweight to medium weight distance very well. Number 7, did I say I like lightweight games? Well, Molly House is not going to be one of those lightweight games, but it is nonetheless such an exciting new title that's coming from Whirligig. Again, at PAX Unplugged 2023, I sat down with Cole Worley to talk about this game, how it came into fruition, the history with the Zenobia Awards, what sort of things it's depicting, what sorts of historical inspiration there were for it, and how this is really translated through intersectionality, not just with the queer history that's being depicted as the theme itself right there, but also how this translates to marginalized and oppressed people throughout history of all types. Molly House looks to be a killer game design. I love the suit-based actions that you're going to take. The components look really fantastic, which is no shock coming out of Whirligig and everything that they've done. And the co-designers look like they've done some really tremendous work from a design perspective. Number 6 is Cyclades Legendary Edition. Cyclades? Cyclades? There's all kinds of ways that I've heard this game pronounced, including by Bruno Catala himself. I got the interviews on the channel if you want to check those out. But nonetheless, this was one of those foundational dudes on a map games that I moved to shortly after originally getting into the modern boxed hobby board games years upon years upon years ago. And while it grew long in the tooth, I still maintained a burning love for it. Eventually, it kind of phased out. I actually got rid of my copy, but I am really excited to see what a modern eye looks at Cyclades and decides what goes, what stays. Yeah, I know it's a rehash of a pre-existing game, but I'm hoping that it preserves the things that I absolutely loved, that core auctioning, jockeying for position mechanic, along with the area control dudes on a map type of game, while still making it feel a little bit more fluid, a little more balanced, and a little bit more within reach conceptually for a lot of gamers. Number 5 is Cascadero by Bitewing Games. Now, Bitewing had the wonderful Zoovadis, which is another game that I got to play at 2023 PAX, but I have not played Cascadero yet, but I'm a huge Reiner Knizia fan. I mean, the dude has made about 1 billion games that we all know and love, and this looks like it has some DNA from some of his prior games while bringing something fresh and exciting and new, especially working with a younger studio like Bitewing. This is a compelling project to me. There's something that feels very Tigris and Euphrates about it, which is probably the first Reiner Knizia game I played. Yes, that checks out. I got into Tigris and Euphrates hardcore early on in my gaming career, and with what Bitewing was able to do with Zoovadis, I'm really excited to see what they do with a brand new title of Reiner Knizia's. Number 4, I have slowly, and maybe actually not that slowly, just fallen head over heels with a lot of historical gaming, not just wargaming, but historical gaming in general. And the big barrier to entry for a long time for me was that a lot of these games were incredibly dense and long and weighty, and I didn't always have the audience to play these games with. But Fort Circle Games has luckily given me a lot to chew on. Shores of Tripoli was awesome, and then Votes for Women was amazing. So number 4 is the very highly anticipated Night Witches. It's a dream team of interesting co-designers on this game. The production looks awesome. Fort Circle has done some really amazing things, and the early buzz is getting me really excited about this. They really have a sort of auteur approach in that studio that gives me a lot of reason to look forward to the games that they're putting out, especially because they're both accessible but incredibly rich. Number 3, well, I gotta give it up for All Play's Kabuto Sumo Sakura Slam. That is the new upcoming Kabuto Sumo game that, yeah, it is backwards and forwards compatible as far as the bugs, but has a square arena and is more focused on American wrestling, which, to tell the truth, I'm not like a huge American wrestling aficionado, but I am a Kabuto Sumo aficionado, and the fantastic things that I've seen behind the scenes that I can't even talk about, what they've come up with for this game, has me really excited. I adore Kabuto Sumo. It's one of the most played games in my collection. It has remained fresh to date. I show it to everyone that I can, and I'm looking forward to playing a lot more. And Sakura Slam looks like it's just going to give me more avenues to play this game in different ways, and more than anything, it's going to give me some really interesting bugs. Number 2, how could this not be in my top 10? It is Arcs, the new game by Leader Games. It is the fantastic looking, absolutely gorgeous, jaw-dropping, campaign-esque type game, but now has been separated into a game that could be played as a single session versus a campaign space 4X action-driven by trick-taking game by Cole Worley. I've been looking forward to this game for so long, and it looks like it may have on the back end the depth and richness of something like Oath, but at the same time, a little bit more accessibility, a little bit more of a foundation that I can get people into, which is a hard thing to do for a lot of leader games. You really need a dedicated audience, or at least a dedicated platform of gamers who are willing to go the distance with a lot of these games. And Arcs, from everything that I've seen, from the designer diaries to seeing up close at a convention to talking with the designer about it, it really looks like it's going to thread those needles and may end up being the best leader game to date. I'm so stoked for it. Number 1, the game that I'm even more hot for than I am for Arcs is Harvest, coming from Keymaster Games. This is a reimagining, a readaptation, a new edition of a pre-existing game that was on the TMG line that didn't really kind of hit with the studio before it folded. However, this is a completely new theme. The designer came back and reworked a lot of the concepts, and it looks tremendous. A very concise, imaginative Euro that has the visual aesthetic of like a Richard Scarry meets Golden Books meets Wes Anderson world. Like, this thing tonally looks like everything that I could possibly want from an interesting, beautifully rendered theme in a game, but also getting to see it at a table, looking at what the production copies are going to look like. I am so stoked for this. Midweight Euro is kind of my core happy place when it comes to games, and while it is good to challenge those conventions, the things that you're just comfortable with, you know, dynamic, different, interesting things, but nonetheless, everything that I've seen about this game looks like it preserves all those great things that I love in a nice, tight, concise, constraining midweight Euro game. It also looks like it delivers a lot of really interesting but intuitive decisions that you can work off of to really develop something new. From the visual look to the mechanical design to the design diaries and everything that's been said about the game, to the trust that I have in Keymaster, who has really put out some absolute bangers. It is the game that I am most looking forward to, though all 10 of these are absolutely fire, and I can't wait to get my hands on all of them. But those aren't the only games coming out this year, so let me know, what are the games that you're most excited for in 2024? Have you heard of any of the games that I talked about? Which of those are you most excited for, and which are you kind of reticent about? Put it in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching, thanks for supporting, and thanks for being such an awesome community. You know that I have been Jack for the Cardboard Herald.